This conference will now be recorded.
So we'll call to order the Monterey Select Board on September 11th at 4:03 PM. We have all members present here in Town Hall. I thought also it would be appropriate to start with a moment of silence for the victims of the attacks of September 11th, 2001.
I had a bad moment there. I thought there was an attack I didn't know about.
Okay, so the first item of business is the town administrator job description. So I think each board member met individually with Melissa and I know that I also met with Sophia, who's HR director simultaneously. What I took away from our meeting is that Sophia would like to review the job description, and Melissa was also going to put together kind of a list of all of her, kind of a more specific list of all of her job duties, not that the job description will eventually be as specific as the list that she comes up with, but that it can encompass everything and that the board and the HR director and everyone can have a full understanding of the specifics. But yeah, Sophia said she would like to propose a job description.
I didn't meet with them on Friday, but I met with Melissa this afternoon and I sent what I thought my changes should be to Sophie this afternoon.
So I guess that's something, well, I already made changes back months ago.
I did agree, Sophia was there when I met with Melissa as well, and one of the things that was a general observation, and I was pleased to see Sophia willing to take on kind of reorganizing. It's both very, very specific about some things and very general about some things. And has a lot of like bullets, and I feel like it's a weird, I hope that Sophia can come up with something that gives a both greater clarity and a little more broad, because I don't think we wanna have all that degree of specificity for some things and not for others, and it can work against you sometimes, like you say, you include working ditches in your description of maintaining a road, and then you don't say cutting the brush. It's like, well, that's not much, like you might wanna say maintaining all roads adequately or something, so that it encompasses all those duties and you're not put in a situation where you have to list every single one. I think that having it organized a little differently would, and she had some ideas, so I was relieved, because I felt like it was an odd mixture of overly specific and overly general, and has an awful lot of bullet items, and doesn't clearly encompass some of the other things that the person's actually doing, and so it was kind of both.
One of her recommendations that I thought made a lot of sense was to divide the functions into primary sections.
That's what I did on mine.
Yeah.
Leadership, finance, committees, because if you operate the committees, you'll be successful. Finance is a given, and then there's the leadership one.
And I'm not sure if there's a fourth category.
I don't know, I mean, the other, like you said, it gets into tasks.
Well,
And
there's
the
also,
tasks
yeah,
change.
for sure, what I was thinking
Technology
is there even, and maybe this is too specific or not, but, and what I think of is like administrative, like making sure you know what's going on with the state, and looking for, then there's budgetary would be, or finance would be applying for grants, but understanding what the changes and regulations are, and a lot of the administrative duties that have to, not just to do with boards, but to do with making sure all of the paperwork for the town occurs. That's not really leadership, that's not really budgetary, like, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, there's other administrative.
And it may not matter, but that
We'll
does
work
seem like
through
the
it.
important piece,
It's
yeah.
a process.
So at this point, if everyone's comfortable with it, we will wait to get a proposal from Sophia.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the next item of business is appointing the ADA coordinator, which has been what, the whole time we've been on the board, Susan, right?
Empty.
So, I would move to appoint Robert Carlson to the ADA coordinator appointment, or position,
I'll second.
and now I'm just wondering about
Kudos to you for
timeline.
finding somebody.
Is it one, yeah, okay, through June 30th of 2024. Would
Thank
be,
you for finding somebody, and thank you, Robert Carlson, for stepping up.
Oh, really?
any other discussion, or we'll
No,
call a vote?
Yes,
Yes,
And yes, so that's unanimous. Approval of that. So the next two items are the treasurer and the accountant contract. Do we have any
I'm
updates?
hoping I'll have it by our meeting.
and I just, since you sort of, is this part of the treasurer contract, isn't really part of the stuff you've been sending us about, like feedback on the financial ledgering stuff? That's a separate thing.
is that something you're working with Jeff on?
It's something Jeff requested, and
Okay.
him and I met with the accountant, but it was agreed that we wanted to see if the majority felt they were useful, because it's gonna be time consuming to
Right.
create.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, like, I wanna talk to you, really, when I come in tomorrow, I wanna talk to you about it, cause I have mixed feelings, and I just wanted to get some further thoughts on it.
So I think when we get proposed contracts from the two firms, we'll send them right to town council. I mean, we've been doing contracts with them.
Is there, like, have they not been vetted by council before?
That's a good question.
I think one time-
Eric's was, cause we did it last year, or the year and a half, or where it ended up being, I'm not
It
sure.
was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like 2 years ago that we did Eric's.
So it would have been a different council.
Sarah's-
than it was.
Yeah,
Sarah's we did recently, cause 1 year, but, I think we should have town council look at it, because I don't recall really going through that kind of a process with it at the time.
Oh. I don't
My
expect it
only-
to be a significant concern, I mean, I
No.
suspect they're pretty standard contracts, but I don't object to the idea of.
Yeah. Municipalities are pretty much their core business, right?
Right.
So I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay, so then a resident reached out about short-term rental bylaws, and I went back to the fees that we imposed at the town meeting that Susan really spearheaded. I thought that was kind of what the select board could do, because my understanding was that most of the other restrictions that could be done were from planning boards, and they were zoning bylaws, like Alford and I think Lennox. But I noticed,
And I think New Marlboro passed something too, I mean, I don't know if they passed it, cause it says XX on the copy I have, but I had the impression they did. I think that came from the select. board.
Great Barrington's came from the select board.
Right,
And the question is that something that we want to pursue?
But-
I can see why, but the reason why I wouldn't want to pursue it is it's not necessarily that I don't wanna pursue looking at restrictions on short-term rentals, but we spent a lot of time last year on unrelated, but a noise bylaw, and then it was kind of shot down very quickly at town meeting.
Well,
I don't, maybe it would be worth getting some more public opinion on it. I don't think the master plan, the master plan touched very broadly on housing, but not, do you want regulations of short-term rentals, to my knowledge? But I would be open to doing something, cause there are drawbacks to unregulated
Right.
short-term rentals.
well, I think so, but I think we need to get some data in front of us. How bad is the problem? I was thinking about, do we know of any instances where a long-term rental turned into a short-term rental here in town?
there are almost no long-term rentals remaining in town, so that would be yes.
Yeah, but can we define that? It may not be definable.
I'm not sure how we would define it, I know of several buildings that have been purchased by corporations or LLCs specifically for the purpose of short-term rentals
Right.
that were previously residences, One of them's on Hoopi Road, not far from my house.
So,
Um,
but what I think, like a working sheet, maybe Melissa could help us get this done, like what are the other towns nearby doing? Are we seeing, how much revenue are we seeing? The tax went into effect this year, right?
so that, yeah, we're
Yeah,
looking at that,
so-
so I'm not sure what the timing on that is, just so you know, because we passed it in May. But then it has to go through process, and we don't know, I actually asked Melissa this today when I was thinking about it. I don't know whether it will be in place in time for us to get the July to September quarter, or if we won't see anything until the following quarter, cause it's a quarterly thing.
But,
But anyway,
but wouldn't we have to have a right of bylaw to do this, or does it?
Yeah, we would propose a bylaw to town meeting. My opinion is that if it's a zoning bylaw, it's something the planning, I mean, it's not my opinion. If it's a zoning bylaw, the planning board would have to take that up.
but it's
That's a
unclear,
process to
but
do all that.
Barrington didn't do it as a
Great
zoning bylaw,
Barrington.
they did it as just
A general
a
bylaw.
commerce, like they looked at it as a form of commerce that they were regulating.
But do you think, in reading the Great Barrington, do you think some of that can legally be challenged?
I guess we'll find out. I don't know.
I mean, that's.
Alford did do it through, by the way, late in the day, I sent you guys the Alford.
Yeah, I
bylaw,
printed
which
that out.
I'm pretty sure was passed they postponed the meeting and it ended up being in March, but I couldn't find the actual minutes of that meeting, because they postponed it from February to March because of the weather, but they don't have any of their minutes up there, they only have like what the warrant was, not what the minutes are.
Yeah. As
I understood it from Alex, it was passed. I know New Marlboro put something in, but I don't know, again, if that would pass. There's like a smattering, so that's what's going on right now, there's also Lennox. I don't know.
But how do
what's
we
happening.
collect all the information so we
That
have?
woman, I sent you that woman that her name was from Otis, she had done the research, right?
How long ago was that?
It was right before town meeting.
Okay. Oh, right, I
But
think I
Didn't
had.
she have all that
But
information?
She had, well, some of it, but it was a little bit.
What kind of information?
Well, how do we compare to, what have other townships have done?
So that's what I.
Well, so Barrington's, the main provisions of Barrington
But
are that 150-day
Yeah,
limit.
you're
Which-
only allowed to have one rental unit per owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, two,
Alfred's
but
even more
short-term
restricted, by the way.
short-term rental, but, I think I think we just start working on it now, gathering information. Because if you gathered the information, we'd have some of the wording, what would we wanna do? I don't
We
know
have
how,
options.
think about our options.
I also thought, and I mean, I said this to the person who reached out to me, it's probably the same person, that I felt like with this, I think that we've talked about having a special town meeting to get major conversations out of the budgetary thing, because everybody gets too tired.
Mhm.
But I think this year's special town meeting is gonna be co-opted by the schools discussion.
Mhm.
So basically, I felt like we were talking about 2024 special town meeting.
Yeah.
That gives us a good window to do some research and come up with something and to decide. I have the general sense from the previous conversations with the planning board, and it's possible that their attitude has changed, but my previous conversations with them about this topic were that they didn't think it was their job to restrict how property owners could use their property. I have a fundamental disagreement with that, I think that's
I think
in fact
that's a
their
select
only
board,
job.
I think
but-
that's a select board decision.
Well,
I
no,
don't
I mean,
know
if
how
The
I feel.
planning board has its own.
If they
purview.
want to attack the zoning bylaw, if they wanna propose a zoning bylaw, that's their purview. But apparently, it can be done with the select board proposing a general bylaw like Barrington did, which according to the news article, I mean, it was going into effect.
Yeah,
They were
think-
getting
Well,
registrations.
I mean,
So if for some reason it would have been struck down by the Attorney General, we would have known, I
Right.
assume. I mean, we can do more research, but, I mean, I guess my question is this something that we're interested in doing, in researching? Do we
I
think
think
that?
we have a lot on our plate,
Yeah.
but I don't think it would be, that we do due diligence on this side. Collect the information, what are the other towns doing, what's the revenue doing? and then we can deal with it when we get through other stuff. I just don't believe, I think we have to collect information and so we don't, there may be pressure on us to answer in December and then we gotta do a town meeting. But it would be nice to have the information there comparative with the other towns are doing. What's the feedback?
I think, collecting information, but in my head, I'm thinking about 2024 to actually,
Well, I think
if
so.
we're interested in, if we decide we wanna do something, that would be my timeline, because I think there's things we have to get through now, but also I think from a realistic standpoint, we need that time to, there are other things on the agenda.
There's other priorities.
Exactly.
So, that being said, what kind of information specifically?
Okay, I would do like what Susan got, I would give like the summaries of every one of them. Just
Of
put
what?
Of what their bylaws.
What other towns
If
have
Okay,
done.
other towns.
Would do that. I would, understand what our revenue has been, because that can make a change on stuff. I don't think it'll be the driving force. When you read about Great Barrington, they paid to have that software, it seemed, to write to register.
Mhm.
Is there a cost for doing this?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Although
We need
the-
to try to put a number on it.
Mhm.
Because there's a cost to it. I think we just, the towns that surround us, just understand what they've done, and that we don't have to rediscover the wheel.
And we'd also have to decide if we thought registration was needed, because a lot of towns that do it don't
Mhm.
either require registration or have registration software, so there's more than one way to
Right,
skin the cat, whatever you want to call
well,
it.
too, but then people might try to get around it, but, well,
Except that.
let other people be the guinea pig and then we'll just.
But everybody's advertising on the same platforms, and if the platforms have been informed of your policy, the platforms are responsible for enforcement.
Oh, well.
I'm not saying there might not be people that'll try to skitter around it, or new
Yeah,
platform
but when
wants
I
to try
see
to
that,
avoid it, but,
one ownership, corporations changing names and, it's.
yep.
So, Melissa, could you please reach out to the neighboring towns, like maybe the South County, and figure out if they have any kind of a short-term rental bylaw? Is it a zoning bylaw or a general bylaw? What was the process for passing it? Look at, once we start getting revenue, I assume we're gonna get revenue. What does our revenue look like from short-term rental fees? And what does Barrington pay for their software to keep track of short-term rentals? Or any other towns that have a software to do that? I think that would be a good starting place.
From like Airbnb, can we get the number of rentals that we have in our township?
Well, I mean, you can also go on Airbnb and look up.
Yeah, but they might take them off if they're not gonna rent it during the summer or winter or
Yeah.
something like
There's
that.
still a lot up there, I've looked.
Okay,
There's a lot.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, just go onto VRBO and Airbnb and put in Monterey. It's very elucidating.
I'm open to it, I just don't wanna, the other thing that I think we should be doing, when we talk to people is gauging public opinion, because there's no sense in spending time meticulously developing a bylaw that's not going to pass at town meeting.
I think the interesting thing for me on that is, for one thing, I think if we were going to take this up after we collected information, we should definitely, maybe put it on the Google group and in Monterey News that we're gonna have it on our agenda, and, put it out to an agenda far enough out that people can plan to be there and get the pulse on that. I was very interested to see what that vote was like, the numbers in Barrington, was not what I expected.
It was voted for.
It was much stronger for it.
For it.
There are strong voices on both sides. And what you
Well,
get
I
when
do
you
think
talk
there was
to
a-
people is, people have strong opinions one way or the
Well,
other.
but some people may have invested in it.
A lot,
And it'd be interesting, do some of these towns have grandfather clauses?
No, and in
No,
fact,
I mean-
technically, there is not just such a thing as a grandfather clause, because,
They made it a
the way
grandfather?
our bylaws are written, right? You are not allowed to have a business without a permit on your property and short-term rentals are considered a business.
Okay.
And that I can say, I'll send you those.
Yeah, see, that's
reports.
interesting to know,
So
because you're gonna get that
basically-
question. Because when we
Basically,
get
right
this-
now, people that are doing SDRs are doing it technically illegally, we've just never gone after anybody.
Because when we did the tax thing, there was a couple, I know one person that got up and spoke against.
Oh,
People
there
don't-
was one person.
Yeah, so,
It was a, big discussion.
Yeah, so I mean, we may hear those people be the most vocal.
They're pretty vocal, and I understand why they're vocal, they feel like it's a source of income that they want.
Mhm.
But, lots of things are sources of income that people have enjoyed over the years that turned out to have adverse effects on other people, and those things were subsequently regulated because they were causing harm to the people that weren't the people making the money on it. So
Not
there's
sure
a
it's always
balance.
good for the neighborhood.
Pardon?
I'm not sure it's always good for the neighborhood.
I think, like, if you read, there's a link in the article you said that was from the Edge, there's a link about New Orleans.
Yeah, that's
That was
right.
a very interesting link, and was
But they
exactly what I
changed the
expected.
rules in New Orleans.
Yeah, they pretty much did away with them in large areas.
No, we did one in November in New Orleans, but it was attached to the house to put the women.
They're really specific, and there are
Yeah.
certain areas you're not allowed to, in the garden district, you can't have them at all.
Yeah.
They're pretty restrictive, and they're not the first ones, like Japan did sweeping regulations, bunches of places have, because it was causing huge housing problems. And the countries that have really acted are the ones that tend to have higher unity of purpose, I'm not sure how to say that, but they're more hierarchical maybe, I'm not really sure. But it's interesting, anyway, I think that it's something worth collecting information, and I have been sort of collecting, I sent you guys some of it, but organizing it into a better format might be helpful, and then we can come back and consider if we wanna take it up.
Alright, Melissa, administrator.
I just wanted to let you know that the next two modules, we're gonna start working on setup and implementation of a software system. It is a employee self-service module, which will allow employees at any time to go in and look at their W-2s, they can print off their statements, they can make changes to their direct deposit, their filing
Oh, that's
statuses,
great.
all that great stuff,
That's
which, less people's hands that it's in. I think we're gonna start off with that one first, cause that's the easier one. A notice will go out to everybody and we'll kind of phase this in. The other part will be an onboarding module for all new hires. They'll be able to fill out all their paperwork online, making it more streamlined and efficient. And once this is all in process and put into place, it will save the town, I believe she said, about $12.26 pay period. So,
For the onboarding?
for the, right now, for the payroll services that we pay for, so by doing all this, it's gonna eliminate some paper. And people won't have to mail out the check stubs anymore, people will just be able to go on and get them, I think it's at like midnight that night. That's what I'm gonna say,
And we already have a direct deposit only policy, right?
we do, yes, I do
Do we
have,
have any holdouts?
we do.
Yeah.
There always is.
I'm gonna talk to Sophia tomorrow about how to go about that.
Do they not have bank accounts, or what?
I'm not sure, one is a new employee that I think I just fell through my cracks of reminding him to get it, in, and the other two of them are older, not older as in age, older employees. I think it's Sophia, maybe could reach out to them and see if there's.
Sometimes if they have banking problems, they can.
Well, I think at the time too, when we passed it, we said all new hires would be only direct deposit.
I believe two of the four fall into the new, and I think they just fell through the cracks, so we didn't catch them. Two are definitely prior to that policy.
Just a heads up, my daughter has, since she's like recently been onboarded at like 3 places in the last year for various reasons, and they were all online. 2 of the 3 gave her a ridiculous number of problems. Like, she ended up having to go in and have like an hour-long session with HR because it kept repeatedly. Like, just a heads up, this might work flawlessly, I just now, having watched her do this 3 times in the last year at different places, 2 of them were like really problematic and super frustrating for her. She's not a tech idiot. I I have no idea how this will be, but just keep your eyes open when it goes in, that you may have you may have no problems, but you may have more problems than you foresee.
Yeah, and he did walk me through the, sample module of it, but, they have to create our forms and everything.
Hopefully it'll all
That
go
was gonna
smoothly.
take a little while
Yeah,
longer.
hopefully it goes smoothly.
The second item is the fire chief would like to have him and I write the grant for the community compact efficiency and regionalization, to propose a shared emergency service personnel. I wanna get your okay before we start spending any time on this.
Can you explain?
We haven't spent a whole lot of time, I think it's Otis. I can't remember, that he's been talking with, that is interested in having, I don't wanna call it a fireman or an EMS person, I just think emergency services right at the moment until we refine it, to have a full-time person that would be able to respond to medical calls and deal with some of the administrative, duties of the two fire stations.
And when you say administrative duties, do those duties fall on this side of the operation, or is it just that firehouse? I mean, I know
It would be a shared, so.
yeah, but okay. I know that, Sean, we've talked about helping him on the budget. Would that person be able to help him on his budget or anything? Or is it tracking the calls he
Yeah, I
gets?
think it's more
Tracking the calls, because he had the young man from college doing it somewhere else.
I think it's more reporting and that kind of
Reporting
stuff.
stuff.
Like, it's not to say it couldn't
But
grow
not
into something
necessarily,
like that.
not a responder, but an administrative or.
Yeah,
No, more of a responder, but when there's not
Not
calls,
a
they can
right,
be in
right.
the office doing
But is this a FTE? Is it,
full-time, yeah.
so we would
It'd
be
be full-time but shared between the two towns.
between the two towns.
Right.
And so you talked about a grant. So what would the grant give you? Would the grant give you the first year pay or?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's the grant that we used when we did the shared HR position and it paid for the first year of salary and benefits for that position. I don't know that we'll get it again, but
Well,
I know they are very in favor of, regionalizing and sharing.
so a portion of that person's time would be assigned to a firehouse and one, for the lack of a better word, waiting for the call of Maytag salesman. They would be doing some kind of paperwork, supportive stuff for the firehouse.
Yeah, we haven't delved into that too much yet, because we wanna make sure you support this grant project and, but I think, Sean sees maybe also some, checking the equipment. I know you guys do that at night during the duty shift, but there are things during the day that could be done as well.
And what salary range do you think of?
Haven't even talked about
Because you're looking at afterwards, there would be a cost to the town, and what would that cost be?
that. You've signed off on the grant application before we submitted it, but I just don't wanna.
I
If you don't.
mean, I know there's an issue there, and I can't speak, I believe, Sean, there's emergency, there's a reason why, so the question is, what does it look like extended, defining the needs. My personal belief is that if you're going to say this person's gonna be here, what other duties, knowing emergency service, would they be doing?
I think I'd like to have a clear, obviously you'd have to start working on this to have this, but I'd like to have a clear idea of what the person's actual job role would be,
Yeah.
where would they be, here or there? How would they deploy? If they're on as an emergency services provider and they're on full-time solo, let's say during the day, I don't know, when would they be working, but it's only one person, do they have to wait for a volunteer to show up before they can deploy? How would it work to have only one
Right.
person? I'm not opposed to it,
I'm not
I just wanna
opposed
have a clear idea of what we're talking about before I commit to let's think about not only getting the grant, but then if we get the grant, we're gonna probably end up having to support the position after the grant is over unless it's a disaster, in which case we plan poorly. But then I wanna know that this is a position that makes sense, but without clear boundaries on it, it's hard to know if that's the case. Does that
Yeah, it
make
makes
sense? Like,
You know, you gotta understand, the devil is in the details, you know, you gotta think it through, because you don't wanna bring a person in here and say, okay, you're gonna work 20 hours, 20 years, and they just come sit. You build the expectations when they come in, you know.
but also if they're deploying.
So, but it
how does
also
it
could be a different skill set you're looking. You may be looking, you know, I don't know if they're doing some kind of administrative part. Is that correct, Melissa? It sounds like.
That's my understanding.
So what skill level do they need for that? You know, I don't know what he saves the responses and, you know, things like that. But, you know, could the person do Excel, has office experience, familiar with the computer?
Do you have any, like, from your experience?
Well, my only other thought would be, we had looked in, or they did the study on ambulance regionalization, but which I think there's compelling reasons behind it, but we fall just close enough to Southern Berkshire out of Fairview that my sense was when we finalized a contract with them for good money, that we kind of made that commitment more secure and stable going into the future, so we can rely on them and they can rely on our financial contribution. Then again, it's still a 15-minute response time on average or something.
What would be promoted?
Well, I don't know what the proposal is, I don't know what the proposal is, whether it's to be in Monterey or Otis, I don't know.
Those were some details that Sean didn't know because they already have the ambulance.
Yeah.
So it wasn't clear if, you know,
Would it go
one
back
day
and
would be
forth?
there, one day would be here.
There's
Yeah,
a
but
lot
can
of
one
details
person
that.
do the ambulance? I mean.
The thing is, I feel like in a way, we're very fortunate because our other neighbors, New Marlboro, Sanesfield, Otis, they're too far away from Southern Berkshire, they have their own ambulance. Now they're paying more than we're paying Southern Berkshire to run their own ambulance services. They might have a little bit of a, what's that?
What are they saying? Do you know?
More than I think 50,000, because I think there's, New Marlboro hired a full-time EMT during the day.
Oh, wow, okay.
But that's just that portion, that's not the night calls, that's not the daytime calls where you need a second person. That's not what they pay Southern Berkshire for ALS, that's not the actual ambulance itself. So I just know that it's more than the 55 that we're paying Southern Berkshire a year. So, that being said, I mean, I just feel like our commitment is really, at this point, financially pretty invested in Southern Berkshire ambulance. And how does that factor into everything? I just felt like, you know, we're dealing with the regional school district agreement, and we have, everyone knows the pain of regional agreements and the difficulties of them. Not that they don't sometimes work out to our benefit, but it seemed like a lot of work to maybe have an ambulance in Sanesfield instead of in Barrington. An ambulance that already exists with ALS level service in Barrington. But I'm not opposed to like exploring additional matters. I just felt like to remember that commitment to Southern Berkshire, how much we're paying them and what we're expecting from them.
I'll see, I'll let Sean answer these questions, so. Sophia and I, the next one, Sophia and I met with, Lori the other day, and this was the revised job
Lori Shaw.
description. Lori Shaw, sorry, yes.
Okay.
The revised job description, I don't think there was too much, she just kind of cleaned it up a little bit, a few things were changed, but since it says in the job advertisement to request the job description, it's helpful to make sure it's approved. Sophia has suggested changing the title from director back to coordinator because she feels better that,
Basically, when you post these things on Indeed, people are using the titles to sort whether they're appropriate. If you apply for a director job, typically you are not thinking it's a 10-hour part-time
Right.
job, right? So the sort of people that are looking for directorships believe they're gonna be director of something that is substantive in a full-time job, so, they posted it and they got one applicant who was pretty unqualified.
They already posted.
It was
There-
posted,
Well, I don't know,
right?
the person is, I wouldn't say they're unqualified, but we've only gotten one.
Sophia's face, she didn't give me the details, but I had the impression she was underwhelmed. I do know, and I have heard of one person that I think would be a good fit, who is interested in it. But I don't know if she's actually throwing her hat into the ring, or that's just hearsay, so, because I did not hear it from the individual. But I need to call that person and find out, because I actually think she would be a good fit.
So Sophia did reach out to Lori Shaw with her suggestion, like, Lori Shaw is not in favor of that change.
Right, well, on the other hand, this'll, put this delicately, I think those of us who are older, including myself, and grew up in a very different hiring and job market, have a really different view of how that works, and I feel like I'm only beginning to understand it because of watching my daughter go through entrance into the job market, and like sorting through things like Indeed and Glassdoor and looking at the way hiring has changed and the way people are classifying jobs. It's very, very different than what existed for most of my work life. And I think it might be, if you're thinking in the old school of how things were done, and I totally understand why they wanted to change the title, right? They feel like it's empowering, we can't give you much money, but we give you the title director. But at the same time, I'm not sure that I wasn't opposed to Mary having that title. But I think if you're advertising with that title, you may not get the sort of people that really would be the appropriate people for the job, because they're gonna see the people that would be appropriate, see director and think it's not gonna work for them. And the people that go for director are gonna, wait, no, that's only 10 hours, I'm not interested. So I think you just would not get the applicants you wanted because of your titling, ironically.
Have we tried to let the director, or you have this posted, the job posted?
It's posted as director.
And you've only had one, and how long has it been posted?
2 weeks.
How long, 2 weeks?
I kind of think that speaks for itself, myself, but.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's the title or the hours or the pay.
Or all of them.
Well, too, is that, if you, depends where you're driving from, Cause
Thoughts?
It looks fine to me, Melissa, the only thing I see is on the first page, second last bullet, a period at the end. Very
Because the
minor.
others all have period.
we want everything. And nobody from the board is gonna apply?
Nobody has yet, Sophia will be in tomorrow, she can update if there's been any.
Yeah, okay.
I know there's only been one candidate on it, Indeed.
And will she do any local, like through the Berkshire?
We
Right.
did the Shoppers Guide, we did the website, I know Lori put like a story in the Monterey News,
Right,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
put,
Right.
I think, my suggestion, let's hold it to director for a little bit longer and see what happens.
Okay.
But while we're on the community center, Mary's been involved with the community center, I think since pretty much day one. And that after she resigned, I don't know, do the board recognize her for her contribution? I mean,
Good question, do you know?
has there ever been in town where, someone, I don't know what the right word is, some kind of special recognition, it could be a plaque or something like that,
Last person I can remember it being done for was Barbara Copier. Oh, and Garrett, well, Garrett, we had a little.
Yeah,
Garrett.
Right.
Also, just as a point of history, there was a director before, Joe Baker.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, pretty fun. Well, but I mean, when did the community center start? Whenever Edith Wilson passed away, so then it's.
Well, nothing really happened.
No, it was all
there.
fundraising.
Right,
and
right.
It took till whatever it was, like 2016 or 2015 to
Get the building.
have people in the building doing things, but it was like 20 years of fundraising and whatnot.
Which was kind of incredible that he pulled it off. It's pretty amazing. I'll reach out to the person that I heard hearsay about and see if they're willing to put their hand in.
Alright, yeah, no, but the job description looks good to me. I
Oh,
have
the
no
job description. I found it.
Opposition.
Mhm.
Unanticipated business. Just to speak to Peter, McCat emailed the board, he wanted to speak in favor of the renewable energy working group lease, the draft lease.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion would be, in a couple weeks here, when we believe the school district planning board is gonna make a recommendation, and then we have to call a special town meeting. At that point, I feel like we'll have a good sense of whether we have too many items to put on the special town meeting warrant with the school, and we're gonna call a separate meeting. Which we're kind of in a catch-22, because it's not gonna be good if we call 2 meetings in a matter of months, but it's also not gonna be good if we call 1 meeting with the school district merger and a list of other items that also deserve discussion.
Right.
So I think it's a catch-22, but that being said, I think the lesser of the two evils is if we have too much stuff to put on the school warrant, to have 2 town meetings, and we can explain to people, we felt that the school district merger really deserved our full attention for a whole meeting. And these other items also deserved our attention. That being said, if there's 1 or 2 items, and they are urgent, like I have an email out to Peter, I just got it out today, so I haven't heard back. But basically asking, would it matter if it's in November or December? But if we have 1 or 2 items that are really urgent, then we could throw them on the school merger warrant. I'm not opposed to that, like, it's not like I'm strictly against that. My thinking was just, as I explained, maybe we just call a second town meeting, and that's the lesser of two evils.
I have a question. I agree with you, we don't have to decide tonight. But on the energy, when I saw Peter, we signed a contract to do the firehouse.
Yes,
Okay. that's
so how did that work?
To do the research. To do the research.
Yeah,
It's
do the
not actual
research, right.
contract, it's just.
It's not to do.
There was, I can totally understand why there was confusion though, because we went to go sign 2 changes, adding in the old landfill and changing the other one to just the firehouse. And we didn't sign the firehouse one at first,
Right, because we, Sean wasn't
because
sure.
we were waiting. The next week, maybe 2 weeks, but I think it was the next week,
Okay.
I believe we went ahead and signed the firehouse one. Is he having difficulty finding proof of that?
No, he just asked about it when I saw him.
Well, he should know, because isn't Beacon working on that now?
Didn't say, he goes, was it signed? I said, I thought we signed it, I
Didn't we
remember
sign
it
it
like
and
you
send it to
did.
Beacon? Yeah, it would have gone straight to Beacon, I'm surprised he doesn't
It
have
went
it.
to Peter, do I?
And to Peter, so.
Included him on.
I don't know. Well, anyway, I'll
No,
touch
so
base, I'll touch base.
If you're able to, could you please just like find where that is? I think it was a week after the first one, and then just send it.
It was like 2 weeks
Because
after,
I-
you had
It
the
was 2
contract, we
weeks
went
later.
over their contract.
Yeah,
Beacon.
no, I think we did, I just
I know we signed it.
don't want
I
anything
just don't
lost
remember
in
what-
translation here.
Coming back to the schools thing for a minute,
Mhm.
So Steve Moore reached out and I see his point, I think it would be good for us to have, I mean, especially, I'm waiting till after tomorrow, cause I don't know what's gonna happen at that, but like, I think even if we're just outlining what we think are the good things and what we think are the problems, or what we think are the unanswered questions. I think the more we can do to sort of get it on people's radar and write something that shows, like, I myself am ambivalent. I see a lot of problems with the proposal and also some potential benefits. I understand why it's even under consideration. And writing something on it may help me to see more clearly how I feel about it, but if nothing else, it would enable other people to see someone else's thinking process and try to make decisions for themselves. Because it is a really big decision, and it's complicated, and the stuff that they're putting up on their website is very glitzy. But it's
Yeah, but
often fact light.
I've been exchanging emails with Jake. Okay. I've talked to, is it Massini, the woman
Yeah.
that spoke, I talked to her.
That was very interesting what she said at the meeting.
I don't know, I'm like you, do I think we need to do something? Yes. But I think there's a lot of lack of detail. Like, she told me, I asked her, I wanna make sure I have this right. She goes, there was 40 bus routes. Her brother, Jeff, and her drove all 40 of them, and they can only do 4 with the equipment. I don't know what that means in time.
Well, did you get the email from, no, because didn't Tim just send it to
Now, I
you?
got that email, but it's a
Okay.
long thing. They go back and forth between the consultant said this and the
But
consultant.
did you get the email that laid out each of the bus routes and the problems?
No, it's on the website. She lists, they have the letter from one of the consultants.
Right.
I didn't print this out, and then it says contractor, and it's all marked in yellow where it's done.
Mhm.
And, for me, the devil is in the details. And how do you tell a parent, well, you're not gonna have, your commuting time's gonna be the same? I know that's hard to predict, because by the time they build the school, those kids will be out of high school, and the moving people could do it. I don't know.
But-
I can really second guess. I asked him, and he responded, he's been responding quick, here's the capital cost. I went on the Massachusetts state system, and they tell you all the schools built and, what the cost per square foot. He says they're figuring about $750 with
A square foot.
a square foot.
Do they have a size of
No,
building?
he doesn't. And, well, they have 3 different models. They have all new, renovate, and add. And I asked him, well, tell me about your square footage for cost. And he goes, well, he responded quickly. I mean, he's engaged like that, but he's like, well, you'll get a chance to vote it down when we know the total cost, because that 37-page document of how the school board will work will decide. Now, the guy Roger on the finance.
McDonald?
Yeah, Needham, he worked in Needham in IT, and he talked to them, and he goes, usually it's much more clearly defined. This is the program she'll have, so but they leave it a lot up to this committee that will be appointed, 11 members, and then they start electing them, and then they will decide what this and decide that, so.
But
I don't know.
I think the transportation thing, it's a valid concern, but I don't think we should get too hung up on it. I read the report of why some of the routes didn't work.
Right.
And it was like, okay, that's a problem, Chestnut, it didn't even say this, but I knew some roads in New Marlboro, and it was the equivalent of Chestnut Hill Road is closed. Okay, so that adds 10 minutes. One of the comments was the bridge going into Southfield was gonna be closed. Okay, well, it's reopened.
It's nicer than ever.
So that's not really a concern, that's not a valid concern. Roads in Bailey Road in New Marlboro is closed, or you can't have the bus on it. Okay, so then the parents drive their kids down to it like they currently do, right? It's not, I don't think we should get too hung up. I think the question for me is 2 things. One is Southern Berkshire going to be sustainable and continue to do well if a new high school is built at Monument? I think everyone is mostly in agreement that it's doing well right now, but would it be sustainable? Will the nice shiny new school draw away too many children where it's just not sustainable to have a high school in Sheffield? And then is the proposed merger going to increase educational quality. I mean, I think there's certainly financial considerations, but if we can only, the transportation study, like, I can't get too hung up on little things like that road, only through four of the routes
By the
out of
time
40
the
could be
school
driven.
built, by the time the school is built, those kids will be out of there that you're looking at.
The thing I have with the transportation thing is it undermines my confidence in the larger plan for the following reasons. When those issues were raised, the response from the committee was, well, they were, a top-notch contractor using state-of-the-art GPS or whatever. Like, actually, that could be the problem, like, so if your argument is we should just ignore the problems because they were a top-notch contractor with state-of-the-art
Yeah, but
GPS,
I
what's
Googled-
that gonna mean for the contractor who's giving you advice on everything else? How many errors on there are there that nobody caught that are deep and substantive, and you're asking me to trust you?
Yeah.
We found these errors, and you're just saying, well, it was a good contractor, that isn't
Well,
a
I don't buy
response.
that it was a good contractor, but I just don't think any contractor is gonna come in and make up a good bus route.
I agree.
Like they said, the Southern Berkshire hired the contractor and it was the same deal.
Right.
And also, some of the bus routes, they're very careful, but I was very happy when I went to Southern Berkshire, but there were some weird things. My little sister had to sit in the center of town here for 45 minutes. Because the bus was gonna come and pick, if you know where I live like a mile and a half down the road. Because it made more sense to drop off the other kids, and the high school bus was gonna come and get me and my older siblings anyway and bring us home, so why did it matter? Well, 45 minutes to a 10-year-old does matter, an
It's a
extra
long
45
time to be
minutes every
standing
day.
somewhere, yeah.
So they haven't been free of their own problems. Anyway, it's a big question, and I think part of where my head is at is Southern Berkshire does a good job. It doesn't seem like this proposal is gonna necessarily make the educational quality any better. My only concern, like I said, would be what if all the high schoolers choice into Monument, as many of them already do from the Southern Berkshire towns, and then there really is no Mount Everett school left. Because short of that, it's like, why fix what's not really broken?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a real concern, and I do think declining enrollments, like whatever little blip they are, I think we're likely to continue to see declining enrollments, so I understand the forces that are driving the consideration, and I understand, one other thing I did hear is that from the 8 towns folks, they've been maintaining that the timeline for the vote and for the procedure is because they don't wanna lose their spot for the state assistance. But I understood from Jane Burke that timeline is not actually the case. So I would like some clarity on that, because if in fact, what they're saying is not true, that we don't have to vote, we don't have to make that decision in October in order to for them to still be eligible to get the state aid, then I'd like some more clarity on what the educational quality is gonna be.
Well, I
They're
think
saying
you
it's not
saw
their
that.
purview.
No,
But-
never, I mean, they had the Simon Rock thing where you can get, 23 or 33 college credits or something before you do. They said they did this study. Someone told me they did a study, the kids don't go to college because of the cost. And by having this college, if you walk out of college with,
High school, yeah.
with say 30 credits and you multiply that by X $1,000 per credit, it could be a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
But, I think there's a fear that they'll lose some of those things. But they get lost. But Lucy said they're gonna take the best of both schools and they're gonna put it in here. But then it's up to that, it's a 37, 38-page document of how the school committee will work.
But see, some of Lucy's arguments that she made at the meeting didn't really seem to make a lot of sense. And I thought actually the counterpoint that Mr. Carpenter made was stronger, because Lucy was saying things like, well, kids wanna be in orchestra and they wanna do these sports. And at these schools, they can't, if they're at this school, they can't play this sport. But really, it mostly overlaps. There's a few sports that Monument has that Mount Everett doesn't, and there's one sport at least that Mount Everett has that Monument doesn't. But in each of those cases, you can maybe not track and field, but if you're at Mount Everett, you wanna play football, you go play football at Monument. If you're at Monument and you wanna play hockey, you go play hockey with the Mount Everett team. So I think it actually gives kids a lot more opportunity
I mean, think about
to have two
plays.
soccer
Yeah.
teams, two baseball teams.
2 plays each season.
Yeah.
Right, instead of 1.
So I actually felt like that was kind of a load.
Yeah.
Because I think it would actually decrease opportunities. I pulled the graduation numbers from Mount Everett, just along with the whole narrative that the population is not gonna exist anymore. It's declining. I did I'm not that good with graphs and statistics, but I graphed it out and then did like a linear trend line.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle of the trend line in 1990 was like 58 students. And in 2025, it's 48.
It's declining,
So,
but
10 students over 25 years, I mean, who's to say all the other factors, but it's not like a sharp,
Yeah. and there's a lot of variability.
oh, there's a lot of variability, I mean, there's up and down, there's been up and down years the whole time. I mean, before I pulled the trend line, I couldn't even really tell how it was gonna.
I will say that nationally, the trend is downward.
Well,
In
25
rural communities.
Well, in 2025, there's supposed to be less high school graduates than like 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of the colleges are becoming paranoid because
There's not enough.
there's not enough to
Feedstock.
support them. Some of the small liberal schools are really in trouble
it-
financially because of their enrollment is going to be so down.
And it's not only is enrollment down, but their prices are up and the desirability of college is getting reduced because while you need a degree to get a job, there's no guarantee the job you get will pay off your college debt, which is a pretty big thing, so.
Well, you see the state of Pennsylvania eliminated a lot of the college requirements for jobs. You know, because people have experience, if you they look at the experience and not so much the education.
Well, and it's also less and less clear how much the education is actually improving their performance in any way, so. I hate to be saying that, since I believe in education and been an educator my whole life, but I do have questions about it. So I don't know where that leaves us, other than I think we have a lot of questions to ask them.
I'll see how it goes. I mean, Jacob responded really well, I mean, almost immediately.
I think they care, they're trying to be responsive, it's just sometimes I feel like the responses are vague or kick the can down the road.
I think there is part of the other side of the story, you have an opportunity to vote it down later.
That did make me feel better, but.
I'm not sure if I agree with it, but.
You have you're halfway in the door at that point. I mean, it's certainly a fact, but if we think it's a bad idea now, we should vote it down now.
Point
I mean, part of the reason I think we're in the situation where we are is the people that initially agreed to forming the school district planning board weren't necessarily, we're just doing it as an exploratory thing. There was little commitment. We put in very little financial commitment into this thing.
But they spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, but we didn't.
I know, but someone did.
Yeah.
It's your tax dollars from somewhere, maybe the state or.
Yeah. No, I know someone, but anyway. Well, we have a lot of time tomorrow to discuss that.
But I'm just encouraging you guys to consider writing something, and putting it out there, just as a way to help people think through the problem, even if you're, like, it doesn't matter, if you have a particular view and you think it's important that they know that, great. Because like I have confidence, Justin, that if you were taking a view, you have reasons for it, and the reasons may be thoughtful and persuasive to other people. I think I feel very conflicted, and I don't think that's bad either, because I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people may be conflicted, but being able to read about someone's thoughts about, like, here's why I think it's a good idea, here are the problems I see with it, or here's why I think it may not be a good idea, and I'm conflicted, gives other people a way to think through the problem themselves, and agree or disagree with me. I'm not asking them to agree. But it just, like, it's a complicated thing, and not everyone's gonna wade through all of the documents that are up there, and some of those documents on the A-Town thing look very glitzy, but whether there's really a foundation for them, I'm not as certain as I might be, so that's it.
What do we have, unanticipated business?
Yeah.
And Sophie wrote us an email about having an office.
Yeah,
We'll have to decide tonight, put it on the agenda for next week.
yeah, I have it flagged.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Sophia, what?
Sophie wrote an email to the three of us about having a private office. So, I'm not looking to, but I was doing,
Yeah.
like you were doing the agenda, these emails we get.
I think one of the
She's
problems
right.
physically with the building, and we've discussed it recently, is like, we don't have extra offices, it's not like Mount Everett would be if everyone went to. The one thing that could potentially be done is like add the cubicle walls.
Well, should we owe her an answer?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, so I think if she took the time to write us, we should take the time to respond.
And the only
I don't
other
have
thing
one.
I can think of is to look at the scheduling of whatever offices we do have and see if we, we can change a schedule so that the office is one person's office 2 days a week and the other person's office 2 days a week. I'm just throwing it out there, whether that's a good idea or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I could think of offhand, given we have limited office space, if there is an office that's available 2 days a week. And we need to change schedules so that it would be
Is it a
intermittent.
full 8 hour, is it how many hours a day is it?
Or?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Fridays, right?
Full day on Tuesdays and a half day on Fridays.
Okay.
That's just the only thing I can think of offhand, other than a weird partitioning of this room. And maybe it's not doable, but it's worth at least thinking
Well,
about.
should respond. There's some, I mean,
Yep.
we're thinking about it.
Maybe there's a closet we can. I know, I was scared of being offhanded there.
And there's the basement, I'm just teasing.
Oh, God.
Comments and questions from the public? Don?
Guys, I'll react. Yeah, I haven't listened to your whole conversation. I must admit, but I must tell you that I think since you're all leaders and your voices are important, you want to ask yourselves, have you, in reaching whatever point you are at now of uncertainty, have you read all the reports? Have you read the transportation report? Have you read the second transportation report? Have you read Jake's explanation of response to the woman who spoke at the meeting that you were at? Because I think if you haven't read all those things, then your uncertainty comes from your own failure to do the kind of study that you owe the public to do as leaders if you're going to speak against this. 24 people spent, well over 3 years talking, reading, discussing, debating. And I think that if you're not going to read all those materials, that there ought to be more deference to that group before you take a negative view, which I kind of hear from you at the moment. I hope it's not true. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. John, I just wanna say that I'm not entirely sure I agree with your conclusion. I think somebody can, read all the responses and evaluate them and still not be certain how they feel about something, or not agree with just because someone says something doesn't mean I'm gonna agree with it or feel that their evidence is persuasive. But I can still think there are reasons to do something and reasons to maybe not do something, and feel that those reasons are in conflict. So I totally agree with you, doing due diligence and reading the reports and making sure you're fluent with the information is important. But I don't agree with your assessment that if you did that, you inherently agree with their conclusion.
No, wait a minute. I didn't say you would inherently agree. All I said was that if you haven't read all the materials, ask yourself whether it's justified as a leader of the community to take a position at the town meeting opposed to the project. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Are we on to the
Minutes.
What's the deal with the 8/20? Do we have a?
Was I supposed to be told on the meeting? Forgot.
No, we left it kinda up in the air.
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
really have a good solution at the moment. But yeah, maybe if you want to reach out and explain that we went to this meeting. And do we need a summary of the discussion for 3 hours? Do we need to just summarize comments that were made by members of our board? Did the finance committee post a meeting as well? So it's relevant for them too.
I wonder what other towns are doing, because we weren't the only one that called to order a meeting.
Yeah, no,
Every town called it.
So obviously this is, got a lot of applicability.
Yeah, I doubt anyone. Like, we can look and see what other towns are doing. I think also there was at least one subcommittee of the Regional School District Planning Board that called to order. So I don't know if they are making minutes. I'm looking on the Barrington website quickly. What date was it, August 1st? Yeah, Barrington doesn't have anything posted yet for it. Anyway, I assume they want a summary of the entire meeting, but maybe they will, maybe it will be acceptable to have a summary of what our board members said instead of a summary of the entire meeting.
So I just hit the first page of the
Yeah.
5 minutes. The blue of Frank's thing replaces all of.
I guess it doesn't replace anything,
Yeah, I
it
think it's
just
just added.
adds to it.
He put in his whole statement and then,
Okay.
so what happened with one of them is it ended up making numbers.
Mhm.
It broke it into numbers.
Okay, so where did that, like, cause I know I had some, I'm trying to figure out where this ended up. Right, cause it
Well, I
was,
think you begin,
board also acknowledged they received several letters. Okay,
Okay.
got it, alright.
it put numbers for
So
some reason.
it's totally fine, I'm just trying to figure out where stuff was, I wasn't objecting to anything, I was just lost.
Yeah, nothing, I have nothing against Frank's statement in particular. My position about statements has always been that. Does it matter if they're written down or if you say it? If it's written, but anyway,
I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
no,
I think so on, under 2 on the second page,
Yeah.
as town administrator that I put in there can go because you rewrote the sentence and it's not needed now.
Yeah. I see also in the same vein, due to a health emergency.
Yeah, again, yep,
I inserted,
You
what
got
could
it.
be inserted.
Either way,
Or,
yeah.
Yeah, deleted, inserted.
ended abruptly due to health emergency, maybe, yeah.
Finance committee can review the job duties as a work in conjunction with the team budget. I think we can go with your comment there, delete
Okay.
the red part. Next one. Next one. Oh, Melissa, do you know if the old police cruiser is already set to be traded in for the new one? Or is that the
Yes, the new one's been ordered.
plan? Okay, and the old one is already set to be, like, is the plan to trade that one in? Okay, that's what I
I
thought.
think that's what was on the warrant, right?
Yeah, Brian told me it was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mm.
I was just thinking once we were selling the,
Well, it's not, we can still sell it at auction.
Sorry.
rather than trade it
I
in.
believe the warrant said to sell or trade at auction.
I mean, I hate to say this, but typically you get more if you auction it.
You trade it in.
Yeah, but
Some of the
some-
prices are ridiculous.
I mean, the trade-in values are usually steeply discounted
That's why
because
they-
they need to make their profit on it when they resell it, so. Usually you'd do better to sell your own car than trade it in, but it's a pain in the butt, nobody wants to do it. I don't blame them. Especially if it's your primary car, because you don't know how that's gonna work, and then you still have to go get the
The
other car.
insurance company told us that they took the Volkswagen the other day, because the catalytic converter. They said they made more money by totaling it because what they did at auction.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, the town meeting warrant said to trade in or sell at auction.
thank you. Do you know where the auctions are, they sell the total vehicles?
Yeah, Copart up in Albany. Copart's a big, well, we could talk about that home.
Well, we just had a really good vehicle get totaled,
Yeah, your sister,
Yeah.
big Y.
it's a bummer.
What was it, the Volkswagen?
No, it was the Volvo.
Is she okay?
Yeah. But it was like a really nice car. It was a 2010, but it was a good car. And the money value that they're saying that it's worth, like, for total is not.
Not
It's just,
really.
I mean, I can, if it was a 2010 Subaru that was rusting and whatever, it stained, no, it was like a 2010 Volvo that was very,
They're using the Blue Book value,
Yeah.
which doesn't necessarily.
you
reflect
can't
accurate-
replace it
Yeah.
for what they're, you can't even
For
get
sure.
close to replacing it for what they're.
We need to talk about
Seriously.
that.
Oh, this just reminds me, by the way, that I've gotten several comments from people about how great the painting work on the community center looks, and I saw that he was working here
Yeah,
on
he's
Saturday,
here
I haven't
Saturday,
gone back to
car
look at
wash
it.
and find it.
Yeah, but like, just folks involved with community center were like really happy with how it looked. And in fact, one of them asked me for who the person was in a contact number. Everybody's always looking for people to do work, so. You were busy, Justin, holy cow.
Do we do wanna pay the Concom?
I don't know. Very few towns do, but that doesn't mean we couldn't, the question is, will it make a difference to recruiting members in? Given the hours that are involved, I don't know that it would. It doesn't, honestly, it doesn't make a difference to
Some of it
me.
they contracted out, I mean, you guys know.
We have an agent, that's what you do. So we have the agent. But we still have a conservation commission. I mean, we could ask them, and I'm sure that the agent could do more and the commissioners could do less. Right, and we pay the agent. I mean, I don't think that's gonna be like a financially,
You think it'll be financially neutral?
I don't think this kind of thing we can really base on, not that we can't consider the finances, but if we care about the Wetlands Protection Act and the things that the Concom is trying to do, we have to fund it one way or another.
But the bottom line question is whether, to me, the question is whether offering a modest stipend will increase the likelihood of recruiting members. That's what I'm questioning.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised.
I would too. I'm not serving for the salary. It might, I grant you that somebody in a different position might be able to serve because it offers some money that they might not otherwise be able to do it. But for $600 for the amount of work they'd be doing in the course of a year, it's not clear to me that that'd be likely to influence very many people.
Yeah. I think more, recruitment, but more so retention. Something not to, it's not paid work, but to defray the costs of impeding on your
I don't
rest
think
of your life.
if I'm getting mileage for how far I'm driving, what's that defraying the cost? What's it costing me to sit in my chair and read documents?
Well, if you have to go, I know some of at least one of the current members is going before work, or probably might be eating into work a little bit.
Right.
So if you can at least feel like I'm getting something for my troubles.
How does Emma feel about it? Did you ask her?
Yeah, we got that email. Oh, yeah, she.
That was how many hours that didn't talk about whether she got.
Paying commission. I forget if it was in that email or different.
It wasn't in that one just talked about how many hours she thought she was working, which was fair, I thought that was what it was supposed to be about, so it didn't occur to me to ask the other question. Okay. And do you have a feeling about it?
I think they should be compensated. I don't know what that number looks like.
Right.
I don't think it's going to increase your participation. It's just hard to get people to participate.
Yeah.
And it can be tough,
I'm otherwise okay with these minutes.
Okay, I'll move to approve the September 5th minutes as amended.
Second,
We'll vote,
yes.
That's right.
and yes, that's a unanimous approval there. So tomorrow night is gonna be not ideal, a little bit. Things just really didn't pan out this week, the way that I thought they were going to. Probably would have done it differently, but if not, no one could plan it, right? So tomorrow night, I guess the plan is to I'm gonna be here at 6 o'clock. And we shouldn't do any real business of any real consequence
Other
from
than
6.
those two things, right?
No,
wait.
so I only texted
Oh,
you.
yeah.
or-
Oh, what, the retirement person?
Not coming. So the problem is, Melissa reached out to open meeting law, we can't, since we're within the 48 hours, we cannot amend the meeting time, even though it would be to amend it till later. So
it's a half hour dead time.
we're meeting at 6, the other thing we could do is I could show up and not have a quorum of the board and just kind of sit here, and then if people come, we can just inform them that the discussion is at 6:30. Also, would have completely just changed it, except I actually put this one in the Monterey News and told a lot of people that it was at 6:30. So I would feel bad if we moved it to 6, they came and did their presentation, and then people showed up at 6:30.
Stick with the schedule.
Yeah, I think we.
I'll come in.
So, well, no, but it might be better if if people come in at 6 too, we can just talk about the school stuff, we can just talk about things. Like I said, we shouldn't really make any, we're not planning on making any major decisions tomorrow night on anything, cause it's more of a
Mostly a
listening.
chance to ask
Q&A.
questions and, yeah.
Yeah,
But I was really hoping that they would hold off on their presentation till 6:30.
But they're not coming till 6:30 anyway, right?
Yeah, but sometimes people come early.
Oh, I see.
Are they coming in person or are they coming online?
I think in person, at least some of them. But one option would be for a quorum not to really meet until 6:25 here.
To just prevent it starting early.
But that's not really kosher,
I think
so
we
maybe
could
we'll just meet and
just honestly say, because it's scheduled for 6:30 and there's significant public interest in this topic, we don't wanna begin it.
Yeah.
That's the.
It's only possible because there was a last minute cancellation, but we're not gonna start it early. I would understand that if I was the one that was waiting. I'd be like, it was scheduled for 6:30 and it's a public meeting. It's not like this is the first time that's ever happened.
Alright, so we'll see everyone at 6 tomorrow.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
vote,
Yes.
yes, meeting adjourned at 5:23 PM, unanimously.